Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. I started my coverage of this It Ends With Us very much wanting to believe that Blake Lively was telling the truth because I wanted to believe that if someone comes forward with claims such as what she claimed, that there would be no reason for her to lie. I wanted to believe all of these things. And then I started looking at the lawsuits. I started looking at the evidence provided in the lawsuits. I weeded through different lawsuits that have been filed in conjunction with the same lawsuit. The number of PR companies that are fighting right now, it's astronomical. And I've also noticed that narratives have been used by the PR on Blake's side that you are a sexist if you don't believe her, and you have to be a misogynist, woman hating, alt right conservative that doesn't believe any women. And that is the fault of a PR spin. PR spins don't know political bounds. In fact, celebrities frequently will claim to espouse political affiliations that they simply do not have simply because it's popular. Celebrities should never be the beacons of truth or the beacons of hope for us. If I've learned anything in the coverage of this story, it's that PR companies in Hollywood are dictating and manipulating the masses into believing people that are good are not people who should be applauded for being good really are just like every other person and they have their own problems and they're kind of crappy people to be honest. And just because they're on the left, somehow we should believe them because people on the left don't lie. And that's just not true. Last time I checked, there's liars on every side of the political spectrum. And it really bothers me that this case has become political, specifically because when I started this, I started at a neutral place and I started looking at the evidence because in every single investigation that I do, I follow the evidence. I don't allow bias to inform my decisions. I don't I don't get manipulated easily by narratives. I try to stay objective and I try to keep my personal opinions as much as I can out of it. In this case, like I said, I walked in wanting to believe Blake. But as I started to dig in to the claims and then looking at the opposing point of view with Justin and his side and seeing she had text messages, he had text messages. Her text messages lacked a lot of context. His had full context. If we are going to go off of pulling a sentence off of out of context, Ryan Reynolds would be equivalent to a man that has essayed Olivia Wilde under his own admission. If we're going to pull things out of context to paint a narrative to win back our reputation, it doesn't necessarily work in the court. You need to have more than a couple of cherry picked text messages to prove something happened. The problem with Blake in this story is that this is a studio that has employees, lots of employees, an HR department, and everything's documented on videos, contracts, emails, text. There's witnesses to corroborate and defend against things that are said about them. And on top of that, you have all of these competing lawsuits, and each lawsuit is providing you context and text messages. And in some of them, they're using text messages to try to claim a smear campaign against Stephanie Jones. And the same text is supposed to be what they said about Blake Lively. And then when you learn that the source of these text messages that Blake got for this lawsuit came from Stephanie Jones after she fired Jen Abel, it paints a picture to me very similar to the article that was done about her, Stephanie Jones, about how she retaliates against people that fire her. She's ruthless. She has a reputation of planting negative stories in the media for clients and then the accusation. She creates the mess by telling someone a dirty secret about her client. And then she comes in as publicist and says, that's not true. And then looks like the hero to her client. There was an article by Business Insider that, contrary to Stephanie Jones's lawsuit, who is the former publicist of Justin Baldoni and Wayfair, they spoke to more than 40 people, 40 former employees and clients, not just Jen Abel and Melissa Nathan. It was multifaceted, numerous people came forward. But Stephanie Jones was the source of these screenshots, and she was motivated to give these to Blake Lively because she got fired. She lost a contract, and she was angry that he hired her nemesis, Melissa Nathan. When you look at the actual lawsuit filed by Stephanie, and you see that she blatantly takes these out of context to claim that Melissa Nathan and Jen Abel intentionally defamed her through this Business Insider article. You also see the same text messages used in Blake's lawsuit claiming that these are about her. And then in Justin Baldoni's, you actually see the full conversation and you see that they were having to deal with the fact that Miss Stephanie went to the Daily Mail. She planted a story about Justin, then came in and tried to clean it up like she does so she could play the hero. And then Jen and Melissa, who were not trying to be a part of any leaks, had to clean up that mess and try to settle Leslie Sloan down. And by the way, Leslie Sloan, Blake's publicist, was also planting stories. And the story really is not about Blake and Justin, but it's about these PR people that are trying to outdo one another and win the narrative in the court of public opinion for their clients. And then as I'm reading through all of these lawsuits, I keep thinking, wouldn't it be great if they just didn't even have these publicists? Because some of the publicists are going rogue. They're doing things without permission. They're inserting themselves into stories. They think they're fixing things, but they're actually making it worse, right? What if they just spoke to the public themselves? Where are the days of people just having authentic conversations with the public? The reason why the world of Hollywood is becoming more obsolete, which is part of the reason why this fight matters. Theatrical movies that are in theaters, viewership is still down 40% from pre pandemic levels. Movies are not getting made as much, they're not released as frequently, and they're not staying as long in theaters. The world of streaming and digital, where people can purchase on a streaming platform a film that they want to watch for a certain amount of time, or on a streaming network that warehouses a lot of them all together, it's more convenient for people than having to go to a theater at a specific time or date. And as the industry shrinks and social media explodes and expands, and there's actually people willing to have conversations with their fans directly on social media, the concept of a Hollywood movie star is starting to become a thing of the past. And what we're seeing today, in my opinion, is that crossroads of the fight in Hollywood over movies because there's fewer made, they have less to spend, they want a bigger return on investment, but then the film spends less time in the theater and it just creates this storm where there's not any money. There's not as much money as once was made. There's too many options now for people and for consumers. And while some celebrities are adapting, others are having a more challenging time with that. And in this case, what I'm seeing are Blake and Ryan being of this sort of old school celebrity mantra where they kind of believe they should just be a mystic, that Hollywood mystique where you don't really know a lot about that person. They hide it behind a cloud of curiosity and illusion. And then you have other people like Justin, who instead of going into that and being an illusion, he did a podcast and started a podcast and started having conversations and opening up dialogue about different topics that he cared about. And that is two polar opposite positions when it comes to navigating the audience, navigating the future. Justin's platform is much more like forward thinking. It's much more progressive in terms of how social media influencers work. And it's for those that tune in and engage on the social media and on the podcasts, they feel like they have a closer connection to him and to his words. Whereas Blake and Ryan, everything is very curated, it is sculpted around an image, it feels fake. Half of this dispute is in that PR difference, at least in my opinion. Justin's backlash in terms of like the reason why people don't like him is they say he's performative, and anytime a guy has to tell you that he's a feminist or he cares about women or he's an ally, that means they're lying. Maybe, maybe not. And Some guys simply don't like him because he's a freaking really good looking dude. And they can't stand the fact that a good looking dude actually cares about women. And then other people just might not like him. But either way, that's him, right? Not perfect, is a human, makes mistakes, owns that mistake. Ryan and Blake refuse to tell anything personal about their lives. If they do share information about their lives, 99% of the time it's fabricated or it's a lie. They believe they're better than people. They live in this world where they are Hollywood elite. They think that they are entitled to things and they're just out of touch with reality. And in this day and age, that type of celebrity is becoming less and less appealing to the masses. And so, in my opinion, a lot of the backlash is around the authenticity of the people involved. Justin has put his worst of the worst out, the best of his best. He admits when he's wrong. He says if he's gotten things wrong, he's vulnerable, sometimes to a fault. Sometimes he's oversharing too much, which is now being used against him. Blake, on the other hand, she and Ryan get off on mocking people, lying to the press, and playing games. For example, I'd like to share something I got in an email from someone that worked at a healthcare facility with Ryan's father before he died. He died of Parkinson's disease. And this is what they said. They had commented on one of my videos, and the comment they left on my videos says, I'm from Vancouver. Gossip on the street is you're pretty accurate. Also, I did work a year every Sunday at the independent living facility his dad lived in with Parkinson's. I got to know Jim on a one-to-one level. He's very nice. His wife is arrogant, doesn't care to take care of her own husband, dumps him in a facility, but shows up for the free food functions. Oh, yeah. When he got too sick for this facility, he went to live with a Filipino family, not his snobby wife. I saw him in the grocery store. He confirmed with me that this was the family he was living with. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, his mother's side. Now, that's what their opinion was. But then they sent me an email to give some further context. And they said, I read this People magazine article that Ryan says his mom was his dad's primary caregiver. Give me a break. He died in the hospital from Parkinson's when he could have died at home. If she actually cared for him. From the Pacifica Independent Living Care Home, White Rock, South Surrey, BC, to a Filipino family home, they were his primary caregivers until Jim died. Jim had a closet full of Ryan's films and commercials and pictures. I saw it for myself. Pictures of himself and his sons, where he taught them fishing, boat, motorcycling. He spoiled those boys. Where was the mother in the pictures? Nowhere. I don't believe he was estranged from his father for 10 years. I think his dad was trying to tell him he's hurting Alanis and others for his own greedy ways. Spoiled, rotten youngest of four boys, maybe. I think Ryan got mad at his dad for telling him truthfully that he was being an asshole and to shake out of it because Jim was not at all an asshole. He loved Ryan and his other sons. Jim showed me everything. He still had a beautiful framed picture of Ryan and Alanis. He said lived with Ryan for 5 years. Ryan dumped her like garbage, like he dumped Scarlett, like Ryan's mom, Tammy, dumped his father into a home and then into a Filipino home when the going got roughest. Ryan is just like his mother. She only showed up at the independent living place for the free food days. I could tell Jim was deeply hurt by Alanis and Ryan's breakup, and he had no relationship with his wife. He'd be in his room while she'd fill her ugly face, not nice souls. Too bad for Ryan because now he can't hide his true person anymore. It just took time before the cat got out of the bag. Obviously, I can't independently verify the veracity of these claims because Jim has passed away. But this person is from Vancouver, claims to work with him. Ryan has publicly stated that he has told himself stories about his father that may or may not be true. He doesn't know where these stories came from. We also know that one of the reasons why I didn't like Ryan and haven't liked him for years is because of what he did to Alanis Morissette. He was a relatively no-name actor, and Alanis gave him a sense of celebrity that he didn't have without. And when his celebrity began to elevate, he tossed her to the trash like she didn't exist, married Scarlett Johansson, who was quite a bit younger than him, and completely disregarded the life that he had built with Alanis. And then when he further trashed Scarlett and cheated on her with Blake, I was like, this guy is just going to he's a social climber that uses women. He doesn't care. He just wants to be famous. That was my opinion. So if that what this person says about his dad is true, that's sad. But I also know that parents do sometimes hurt their kids, and sometimes even when they love their kids as much as they love them, they make mistakes. So Ryan's point of view about his dad could be true or could not be true. But it does sound like maybe his father was someone that would have held him accountable and been accountable to his actions and behaviors. And if there are people in your life that tell you no and not what you want to hear, you can cut them out, especially when you're on the rise and you have a lot of yes people surrounded by you. That email, along with a video I found of Ryan talking about losing his father in an interview that he did with Variety magazine, where he and Andrew Garfield did actor on actor conversations where they both kind of interviewed each other. Ryan made a comment about how he's closer to his dad now that he's dead than he was when he was alive. And he's working on his relationship with his dead father, which sounded eerily similar to the claims that Justin was channeling Blake's dead father and speaking to him. Odd to say the least.
I ask that question often. Is that
Yeah.
true? Was my dad as challenging as I like to think, or am I romanticizing that
Yeah.
to pave over all these other things with whatever the drug is, accomplishment, or or
Yeah.
whatever?
Yeah.
But the story is not true. It's not. Nobody's black and white like that. There's no like sort of binary code that tells us they're this or that. But those stories we tell and those things that kind of screw us up or we think screwed us up are the exact weird kind of burgoo that gets us to have carve a place out in the world. And I also noticed that story, letting go of that story, has actually been one of the greatest gifts ever.
Really?
It's made me closer to my dad since he's passed.
As a spirit, yeah.
And what you said about, because I recently lost a very.
So now Ryan is saying that he was telling himself a story about his dad that wasn't true, and that his dad wasn't all of these things that he thought were bad. And so, because he understands now that it was a story he was telling himself, now he is closer to his dad, even though his dad is dead. And he's close to his dad's spirit. And when I heard that, and then I got the email, I was like, well, in Blake's lawsuit, she talks about how Justin tells her about speaking to her dead father. So apparently, if Ryan speaks to his dad and has a relationship with his dead father, Justin does that to her. It could have happened both ways, but it also seems a little bit odd that he would make this claim in December. December, he said this. That interview was December 2024, and the lawsuits filed end of December about Justin speaking to her dead father. That was one moment where I was like, there's something off with this lawsuit. And then another thing was finding a clip of Blake Lively biting Justin Baldoni's lip, flat, straight up, biting his lip on the set, walking while they're kissing. The footage was taken in January of 2024, published by Splash News. And Justin says that the lip bite was never brought up until the lawsuit, but she definitely did bite his lip, which, by the way, when you're kissing in a film and you're doing whatever kissing that's supposed to be romantic, I would guess that sometimes biting happens by accident. Lips can do weird things, but I'll show you that clip. What I noticed in the lawsuit that Blake filed versus the one that Justin filed was this concept that Blake would act a certain way. She would be open with her language. She would be flirty in her text. She said that ball busting was her love language. She talked about how she would show him the flirty way that they will do the rooftop scene the next time they're together, implying they're going to practice their intimacy scene of the rooftop scene. that flirtiness and that overt sexual charisma, I guess, that she has, she puts out willingly into the world. She consistently talks about sexuality a lot. And that's not to say that women that talk about sexuality cannot be sexually harassed. But in this case, she has so much more power than he does. There's video evidence of her biting his lip. There's the video evidence of them dancing and things not happening the way that she says they happened. There's whole text messages that completely dispute the narrative that she claims as far as fat shaming, as far as, the inappropriate text messages or whatever that she claims that she received. There's evidence of her inviting him to go into her office or to her trailer to pump while she's pumping. And I know that none of that means that she couldn't have been sexually harassed. It's just there's so much evidence to counter it that there's, in my eyes of what I've seen, it would be very hard, in my opinion, for a jury to see this as a blatant sexual harassment case, straightforward. There are media outlets that are saying to me and to us that we need to believe that this is a straightforward sexual harassment case. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. This is what her lawsuit alleges. This is how she felt, and it doesn't matter if there was nuance in this relationship. But it does matter because if there was flirting on the set and if there was flirting in texts and if it was a flirtatious relationship, that's way different than a completely benign, innocent relationship of two colleagues. Workplace flirtation is not the same as sexual harassment. And being uncomfortable by someone doesn't mean you're being sexually harassed. It has to be pervasive and extensive. If it were so pervasive and so extensive, she would have gone through the proper channels to report. But then her own behavior on the set shows that she's doing a lot of the things that she complained he did to her. So she can do it, but he can't. And that's the double standard and the double speak. And she accuses him of doing things to her that she does to him. This case will be very hard for a jury, in my opinion, to go in her favor, especially with all of the evidence that they have. And this new evidence of the lies about the kissing, the lies about his dad, the lies about all of these things are only going to further erode their credibility. And that's really what it comes down to. It's not about do you trust a woman? It's do you trust a Hollywood machine? Because celebrities are not the beacons of truth. And it's really irresponsible of the mainstream media to say that if we don't believe Blake, it's going to hurt all women. She doesn't represent all women. Blake doesn't represent me. She doesn't represent more than half of the American women I know. She lives in a completely different world. But for most of us, her not being believed might have nothing to do with the fact that she's a woman and more to do with that she's an entitled narcissist with a narcissistic husband that both lie. But that's just my opinion. What are your thoughts about this new evidence? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. I'm loving to see all of you in the conversation. And thank you so much for watching. Bye, guys.